Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Dad's podcast. I'm here with my main man, Dr. David Wardy. Last time we got on the call, we got to chat a little bit about our time together in Costa Rica and just reconnecting and getting a chance to to geek out on all the things that we do. And we kind of mentioned that, oh shoot, we should have recorded some of the time that we had together because there's some just tantalizing conversations and insights that we had. But it's a pleasure to see you again, buddy, of course. And we've got some fun guests on today. How you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Good.
It's hot here. It's summertime.
It's hot.
And it's freaking hot, dude. Yes, it's ridiculous.
I love it.
But aside from the heat, I'm doing fantastic.
Good. Well, I tell you what, I went to pick up a new tracking device.
Nice.
Got the
Very
Vivo
cool.
Active. You guys know this. This is the Vivo Active 5. In the spirit of springtime, and just really, in springtime I always get back into running. I always sort of refresh my, I guess, how I want to optimize myself, and refresh sort of like what's my goal for the year. It's a little different than January. It's more like, okay, the spring is sprung, the weather's changing. It's like the outside, the outdoors are enticing us to get out, and so I wanted to have some new tracking data for myself on top of the Oura Ring. But I say that because we've got a couple gentlemen here that are all about optimization, and they've got an amazing platform called Optimability. And so we've got the two children or men of Optimability in Martin and Ioan. So I wanted to bring them on because what they're doing at a young age, in their 20s, and they've created a platform, and they've created this experience, this really immersive, highly detailed experience for people that are, say, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, that maybe once knew a state of health, but have completely gone sideways on it because they've prioritized their business and their careers, and they've kind of forgotten about health, and they've forgotten a piece of who they are. And so I was so inspired when I listened to their story that I was like, this is a great conversation for all the men, women too, but all the men that are tuning into the podcast and going like, oh, like, I just feel stuck. I don't really remember what was possible for me. And so Optimability's here. Thank you so much for sharing space with us, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. I'm Martin, and this is my co-founder, Ioan. So yeah, I mean, I know, Nick, we've been working together for a little bit. We've chatted a little bit about what we do, but I think first and foremost, a good way to kind of start, like, what is Optimability? Who are we? Is kind of go over our stories. I know Ioan's got a pretty amazing story. It's kind of the reason that we even got together and clicked in the first place. He's honestly not even supposed to be walking right now, so I think that's a good place to start, and I'll let Ioan take away from there.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Thank you for that intro, Martin. But just a little bit about myself. Luckily, unluckily, I wouldn't be here without my story. But I grew up in Bulgaria, same as Martin, funny enough. So a little coincidence there. But I grew up with congenital clubfoot, and essentially that just means like your foot's twisted as a child. It's inverted. Usually that's cured within 2 to 7 weeks with casting, no surgeries required. Unfortunately, because of corruption in Bulgaria, I had 3 botched operations where pretty much my entire Achilles was severed. And what that rendered was immobility for around 5 years of my life. So I couldn't walk. I was like hobbling around, which is why we moved to Canada, because one of the best treating doctors in the world, Dr. Pirani, is here in Surrey General Memorial. Very thankful and blessed to have come here. My mom, we came here in 2005 and actually ended up spending around up until 2014, 2015 in active physiotherapy every single week, 2 hours a day on a stretching board, battling scoliosis. I had a bone tumor as well and some other problems. And then I ended up being in orthotics up until I started Ironman training in 2018. So around 18 years in restorative physiotherapy, which was a lot. But luckily, throughout the hardship, it taught me grit, it taught me perseverance, and taught me a ton of really, really strong-willed emotions. And luckily today, I'm at the point now where out of high school, I started weight training. So I put on around 80 pounds naturally, got up to 225, tried to hop in the pool, tried to swim 50 meters, couldn't even swim without gasping for breath, and told myself, man, I'm this big guy, I'm not really that healthy all after all. So signed up for a half Ironman and a bodybuilding show that were 1 month apart. I ended up getting the most inspirational journey award in the natural bodybuilding show, and then a 504 half Ironman. And since then, just been continuing to stack on and make data and health and just everything that has gone into my story as accessible as possible for people, so that way they can, feel empowered and continue to move forward with their lives. Yeah.
My
Beautiful
goodness, Ioan.
Story.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible.
David, go ahead.
Very lucky.
Well, no, I'm thinking, like, how does it feel to feel like Superman now, putting on all that muscle and weight, buddy? Because I'm sure that wasn't there on your journey, man, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
been
sure you feel
amazing.
a ton better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just rebalancing. So I've been doing around barefoot movement for 3 years now. So Vivo barefoots and ultras and running. So just evening out the disproportion in that side of my body and dealing with, like, obviously the fascia clogs and just the complete disparity in those two tendon movements, with my left side being so overextended, but the right side being, still stiff. So just that whole feeling of unlocking that has been amazing. And obviously putting on the weight and filling out is everything I could ever ask for. So I'm very thankful that that's even it's a possibility at this point in time. So yeah.
Beautiful story, man. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
You know what's remarkable about this is that, your whole family came together because you guys literally moved country to have this experience, and you've been someone plugging away at this when everyone else your age was, living the dream of, teenage life and whatnot, and you were working on this, really challenging pathology that you got to course correct. And the amount of knowledge and wisdom that you gained as a result of your journey is remarkable. So much so that most people that share, or that are maybe even tuning into the podcast, are like, "What the hell is he talking about? How do you do all this?" And what an inspiring story. So take it from there, Martin. Like, you guys found each other, and obviously there's a lot of, like, kindred philosophy and everything, but, like, tell us how you guys came together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing to mention beforehand is Ioan does he does downplay himself a little bit. Like, he's done 300-kilometer bike rides, a 504 Ironman. He's also like 6'5", 6'6". So you don't really see in the camera, but he's just like a Superman, right? And it's all, like, it's super crazy because it's somebody, if you've seen the videos, like, he wasn't even supposed to be walking, let alone running a 5-hour Ironman and doing 300-kilometer bike rides across a day. So when we first met, it was like instant synergy. Obviously, I was inspired. Obviously, we can really relate because he's born in Bulgaria. I'm also born in Bulgaria. Both of our families kind of went through, like, poverty and just the similar process when you come to Canada as immigrants from a country like that. And when we first met, I was mainly focused on powerlifting. So I was doing very competitive powerlifting. That same year that we met, I ended up ranking first in the country and then breaking a bunch of powerlifting records as well. So he had a high performance background. I had a high performance background. We just went to work out and, like, we really clicked. And then maybe a year later, he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm working on this thing, and I just want to get health to become more realistic for everybody in the world, and really highlight the importance of, like, the holistic aspect of health, where it's not just go to the gym and eat right and then get healthy, when in reality there's like 100 puzzle pieces to the picture." And so I was like, "I love it. Let's do it." At the time, I was in real estate, so I was a realtor, and it was just like a good little side thing because I had the flexibility to do it. But then quickly it started phasing out of real estate and into this passion project because I love health so much. And through that, I was able to unlock a whole new level of fitness and performance. And so I started doing Ironmans, marathons. I did a couple of marathons in a month. And then I was doing some ultra stuff as well. Like I climbed Mount Everest elevation in 12 and a half hours. Just by, not like the Mount Everest, but like just by climbing up and down this hill that we have here in Canada, Grouse Mountain. And so, yeah, it really opened up my eyes to like the possibility of what's possible when you can dial in every aspect of your health. So we came together, we created Optimability, and now, both being high performing individuals, we work with typically younger guys that had some sort of athletic background and they got into business. Business is going great, but they've lost all progress because of it. And now we come together, we do all the testing for them, we do all the specialist consultations, put together plans, and then this is the best part, we automate everything. So we have an in-person chef come to your house, cook all the food for you. We have a trainer come so they can show you the workouts, make sure that you're doing it right, and then even a physiotherapist to help you with recovery, movement, and making sure that you're contributing to like longevity and just overall health of your body. So that's essentially the story of how this all came to be. And so yeah, we're really excited here to be here and just continue the journey at such a young age.
Go ahead, David.
No, it's super cool. I love it. You guys are so young. So for our listeners, if you do see the video, these guys are striking young, beautiful gentlemen, right? And I feel old in front of these guys. But guys, it's awesome to see that you guys are already in that space at your age and you're wanting to kind of take the world by storm and go do this. And it's very much needed, man. Like you said, a lot of important things. For sure, the holistic picture, because a lot of people don't even know what that means. And in that in itself is a journey learning the whole and how we're really put together and what needs to be addressed for our whole health. And like you're saying, whether that's entrepreneurs or just busy paced guys and they're losing their health as a result, or just somebody who's trying to optimize their health, right, and get healthier because they know there's more. I had a client today come in, and she came in, she was referred by her daughter, and she didn't write anything, no complaints on the patient paperwork. And I remember I asked her, I said, "So you don't have any complaints? You feel good, huh?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I mean, there's this idea in people's minds that the absence of symptoms means that they're healthy, right? Is what I'm trying to get to. And so after checking her out, she's far from it. Okay, we found all kinds of fun stuff that she needs to address in her health. So we need more things like this that are available to people that are of ease, like you guys are doing it, right? Because honestly, like people that are really busy, we don't have a lot of time for that stuff. And so we got to figure out ways to fit it into our busy process throughout the day. And it is possible to do it. So I love what you guys are doing because, like I said, very, very much needed.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to hear that both of you guys have this, performance mindset. Because it's one thing I think a lot of people get stuck and they kind of go, to the point that you brought up too, David, we don't know what we don't know. And so we don't know when we're not feeling, or we don't know what good feels like, or we don't know what great feels like. And for a lot of times we can get stuck in that sort of reality of everything's fine, whatever the hell that means, right? To the point where you can take people and show them a new way of doing life, a new way of moving, new way of eating, and bring in all the resources that really there's no excuses to not get it done. And when you provide that for people and they start to have an experience of like, oh, this is what good feels like, what else is possible? Like, I love that's sort of the solution that you guys are offering is like, what else is possible? What am I blind to? What can't I see that I can have option towards? Because I tell you what, a lot of the younger men that do come into our clinic, they're just sort of dismissed, because there's something going on in your generation, which is profoundly beautiful, which is that there's this intense desire to improve and to improve upon what's come before. And yet there's this sort of like gap that people can't really be proactive in our Canadian healthcare and American healthcare systems. That there's no such thing. And so it's kind of like, well, you're busy, so you probably don't feel as good as you could. you're just going to get older. And then let's talk in like 30, 40 years when you're deep into your disease, and I'll put you on some medications. So I'd love to hear from your perspective a little bit, that sort of problem that you're solving and that reality. And obviously, like Ioan, you shared just your whole journey with that, and how Western medicine obviously played a pivotal role in as part of your healing, but also like there's so much more than that. So what's sort of your message to other, men, women, and people in your generation of like, hey, wake up, take opportunity, and be proactive. Maybe Martin, do you want to start us off and then jump over to Ioan?
Yeah, so it's funny you mention how a lot of the younger guys coming in, they very driven, and they a lot of the time don't even know the potential they have, or if they do know, then they start going after it. Because one thing we've noticed is by automating a lot of these busy tasks, like the grocery shopping, the what do I eat, what tests do I have to do, what training do I have to do, like what do I even need? By automating all that, it's actually crazy to see. We've only really been in business for just almost 2 years now. But the guys that we've worked with, almost every single time, anywhere from 20 to 35, they get it to this point of optimization where they start approaching challenges with a whole new mindset of like, okay, so I've done this, now I'm gonna go and try this because why not? Like if I've done this, then what else is possible? We actually had a guy that we've been working with for a couple months now, I think like just over 3 months, never run before in his life, pretty decently healthy, fit guy. He didn't really know that he had the potential, but within the first 3 weeks, he ran his first half marathon. 3 weeks following that, he ran a full marathon. And then in 3 weeks, he's running 80 kilometers with a bunch of his buddies. And it just goes to show like what's really possible when you put all these pieces of health together and you really live up to your total physiological potential. And this happens all the time now. Like we have guys where completely out of shape, they thought they just wanted to lose some weight, look better, and now we have somebody that's training for to fight in the UFC. And it's like it's very common where you get to a point in your health where you mentioned like symptoms. Just because you don't have symptoms, you think you're decently okay, but then you get past that and you actually start optimizing all of your levels, and you eat amazing, you sleep amazing, you train amazing. Once all that is taken care of, you start to really tap into what you can be, and it's honestly it's amazing to see what we've been able to help some of these guys create so far. So I'm really excited to obviously see where it goes. We're still young, we're still new in the journey, but to further on to that discussion, I think in terms of when it comes to the people that we've been working with, it's just really quick. It's really important that they have to understand the actual importance of health. A lot of people don't even understand health in general. Like if you look at the current healthcare system, especially in North America, it's very focused on symptomology. You go to the doctor because you feel sick. You go to the hospital if you have cancer. You're focused on putting a bandage on the bullet wound. So by creating Optimability, that's obviously one thing that we want to emphasize importance on and educate everybody about. And it's been an awesome journey so far, and I know Ioan has some things to touch up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very well said, Martin. But it's actually unbelievable as humans how amazing we are at reactivity. I posted a story today, and if you look in an operating room, the doctors, before they perform surgery, they know who's going to be in the room. They know the blood pressure. They know what part they're operating on. They know what they're using. They have the X-ray. They have like thousands of other things I could go on to name, but there really isn't something for proactivity. Like we're very good at being reactive, but like what does a proactive approach look like? Well, we have the validity piece with me and Martin coming in as somewhat high performers. So that piece of proactivity is going to come in terms of data. So when we started initially with the DEXA scan and then we compared that, like just the DEXA scan alone, like I don't think a lot of people know or realize this, but that one piece, that's the only real way to know what your true BMR is. Without your true BMR, you can't build a good nutrition plan, right? Obviously there's like weight displacement tests and like water, but with the DEXA scan, Like that one little piece of truth can change somebody's life. It can show them they have scoliosis when they don't even know about it. For example, that happens in around 10% of our client case studies. And ultimately what we're doing with all this information and how we're combating the lack of the current health industry right now, which is a profound lack of understanding, very difficult to apply, and unclear foresight for the actions that we're taking today and how they bleed into our 30s, 40s, and 50s. So the goal with Optimability is to create this data-driven approach that's as easy to follow as the alphabet, where everything makes sense for somebody to be as empowered as possible, not have to feel repercussions about their reproductive system, their sexual health, their physical health, their mental health, so that they can live their dream life, which is ultimately, like, I think a big part goes back to my story, which is, you know, you defy all these odds. And when you tap optimization onto something like a really serious injury, even that is powerful enough to propel you to that golden zone of living at a peak. So we're just trying to embody that as much as possible and continuing to chip away at that blindsided approach that we see in society today. And ultimately, the one more thing is that frustrates me and Martin so much, where it's like people are just have no idea. So we're just trying to make it as clear and concise as possible, and as clear and concise as possible for them to implement all these things. So
Yeah. One quick thing I wanted to add is that a lot of our guys that we work with today, they are on the younger side of things, obviously, because it's easier to relate with us being younger and all. But it's part of the education aspect is having them understand that they are young now and they can get away with a lot of things. And obviously we see it all the time. Like, you know, these guys are partying like crazy, they're traveling, their sleep's all over the place. And so I think the biggest piece of information that really helps them understand, okay, it's time to get focused and really understand the importance of my health, is when we show them the science of having decreased muscle mass. It actually increases your all-cause mortality going into your later years of life. And so it's like, okay, so put on size right now so that by the time you're 70s, 80s, 90s, you can still be moving around, walking, running, jumping, playing with your kids and your grandkids without any underlying issues because you neglected it in your 20s and 30s. So that's one thing we really focus on is like, yeah, sure, we're young, but the things that we do now and the foundations we set is ultimately what's going to carry us for the rest of our life. So it's a matter of how well do you want to live and for how long.
yeah, one more thing I'll add, and I think David can really attribute a lot to this point, is you know, we've had clients where their heart rate is perfect, their heart rate zones are great, you know, their weights are in healthy levels, their scans are good. And then we do one test that's outside of that visual paradigm, that, you know, heart rate and respiratory rate paradigm, that shatters all those beliefs, that shows an underlying root cause that we never would have seen. And that for me is like just so tantalizing as to such a big point why it's so important to look at things from that holistic lens always, and never be satisfied with just information overload all the time. So.
No, I love that. You know, we're a divine machine, right? And like I told you guys, the beautiful piece of this journey that you guys are on is you guys already have a decent amount of experience and knowledge, but as you keep going down this path, you're going to keep learning all the cool things about how our bodies are put together, right? And you just gain more and more wisdom, like Nick was saying earlier, and we call them holons, right? A truth within a bigger truth within a bigger truth. And then you start to create more of an understanding. What I found on my journey, and I'm still not done, man, is everything I thought the body was, it's not. And it's funny what I was taught in school, right? Like anatomy, physiology, and yeah, we need the foundations of some of that stuff. A lot of the stuff the way I was taught to look at the body, I don't look at it that way anymore. And I'm helping people like 100 times more now than I was when I got out of school, right? So that's the beauty, man. And like there was a lot of truth to what you were saying, is like you can look at a lot of these tests and these surface level things, or even do certain tests that will tell you certain things. Everything looks good. But like you said, then you find that one thing that's like, well, wait a second, maybe he's not good, or maybe she's not good. We need to address this. I mean, me and Nick were talking about in our last podcast about the result is based off what you're measuring. And if you're not measuring the right things, right, then you're not going to get the result you're looking for. And you guys are in the business of giving results, right? So like you got to have good measurements. And so that's a lot of truth to what you're saying, man.
Yeah, I wanted like to add sort of another layer to this, which you guys are talking about, which is it's an interesting hook because I don't know if in my 20s, like I'd like to think that I would have, but I don't know if I would have cared enough about my 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. So I'm curious, like, is there something different in the people that you see or work with, or just your own mindsets? Like, what allows you to sort of see that sort of forward future a little bit more, or allows you sort of access to make that a priority now? I'm curious, and then sort of to the point of that hold-ons and that experiential, learning process that happens for all of us. It's like I'm also excited to see where you guys are in 20 years from now, knowing what you know. But let's start with the first part. Just what do you like? Why is that a hook for you? And do you feel like that is the right hook for every guy that's sort of in that younger age group? I'm curious. And David, I'd love to hear if you think that would be a hook for you, if you were to sort of go back in time as well. But go ahead, Mark.
I was just, I really love that you brought that up, because one of the biggest things when you're this age is you don't really think about the future as much. You kind of just want to live in the present and have fun and do whatever your young, healthy body can do. But especially with the guys we work with that are able to afford the service, they're all some sort of an entrepreneur, executive, business owner. And when you frame it in the way of the 80-20 principle, Warren Buffett has accumulated the majority of his wealth in the last 10, 20 years of his life. When you frame it that way to a lot of these younger guys, it makes so much more sense why they want to be living a better, healthier life in their later years of life, and not just live as much as possible right now and then, be unable to live nicely in your 60s, 70s, 80s. And so when you frame it that way, they start to think about the possibilities of what they're truly capable of over an extended period of time when you're operating at your fullest capacity. And that way, they're less likely to be partying and exhausting their body's resources right now, because they know that by the time they're 70 to 100, they will still be optimized, they will still be able to be sharp. And 40, 50 years of business goes by. Imagine how much good you can do in the world and how much progress you can make on the project that you're working on. So in that sense, it's really easy for them to kind of sit down and say, oh, you know what, actually, I could spend a little bit more time taking care of myself, knowing that when I'm older, I'll be able to live better. And it also ties into our company mission of ideally wanting to double the average human's lifespan, which, with the current state of technology and, different sorts of capabilities that we have and that are growing, we think is very achievable over the course of the next 50 to 100 years that we're alive.
That's awesome. There's something said for helping to open people's minds to the concept of delayed reward, because like genetically or like historically speaking, as cavemen or whatever, we were just constantly living in immediate reward. Like, how do we survive? So it's an interesting ask that you're putting on the table for these younger individuals, and I'm sure it's not just for you guys. It's not just young men that you're working with and going to be working with. It's going to be men and I'm sure women too, of all different ages. It's just the clientele right now is that probably more so, or is in that favor. But there's something that needs to be switched in the brain to be sort of geared towards delayed reward. And I think that's like you guys is through education, through testing, through assessment, through communication, through living it yourselves, you're transmitting that to the people, and obviously it's landing. So that's awesome. Go ahead, Ioan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of the guys that we work with as well, I think in today's day and age, without a really strong sense of willpower and alignment with core values, and just alignment in general, we're always getting hit with just false, like dopamine hits. Social media, fast food, there's a giant list of things there. So when they see something like our company, where we're forthright, we look into the future, we use a data-driven approach, And on top of that, we're saving around 12 to 14 hours of their time per week. And we just hit it from that alignment truth perspective. It's actually seen as kind of relieving for them. Like I see it in their face when they're talking to us, like they can open up to us. And once you combine a lot of those individuals from around the world that have that mindset, that set of frame, that community becomes very powerful. And Martin and I have an amazing mentor. His name's David Allison. And he brought up a really good point where it's like, it's hard for men to truly be men nowadays with like, we're seeing lower levels of testosterone. We're seeing like that whole, I don't want to call it like negative masculinity, but like that whole tribe aspect of everyone working towards a goal that's so diminished. And for us to be bringing that to light as like a little add-on bonus to optimizing and making your whole existence better, I think it's very appealing. And I think that frame is also important as well.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I think that that's huge because there's a huge aspect of masculinity that's confusing for a lot of the men in this world, and not knowing can we still be an expressive, strong-willed, masculine human on this planet without hurting someone's feelings. And it's really interesting what society is impressed upon young men, older men, middle-aged men. I mean, it doesn't matter of how we're quote unquote supposed to be. And you're sort of like enlivening that that aspect of us that no, this is who we are, and it's totally good and okay and right to dial in this kind of way that you guys are promoting. So I love that. David, when you're in your 20s, did you care about how long you're going to live? Did you care about this stuff?
I'll answer that question with this. And the guy has just mentioned some stuff right now. When you hit about 40 and I'm 43, you start to kind of find a little bit more awareness of your mortality, right? And so like you guys, you're working with a younger population, and that awareness, I guarantee you, is not there yet. But like Nick will agree with me as well. Like, you don't think about your mortality in your 20s, right? Like that wasn't a thing.
Came with kids, man. Came with kids.
Yeah, you're just going, right? So then when you start having kids and a family, or you hit around 40, you start to feel that mortality a little bit more. But the thing is you guys, I love the way you're presenting this, is because you kind of talked about showing this timeline to these very driven individuals, right? Of, okay, this is where you're at in life right now, but like, what do you want this to look at the end of the race? Like, and a lot of people don't find that awareness. So honestly, one of the biggest wins you're doing for your clients is helping them find that awareness at that young age. That's a huge win just in itself, because a lot of men and women don't find that until another 10 to 15 years, man. And so I think it's beautiful that like you guys are bringing individuals up to that state of, hey, I need to address this now. I need to have self-care as part of my lifestyle, and I need to optimize and have people guide me on this journey, so that down the road, like you guys are saying, I'm not, wasting away in my last 20, 30 years of life, right? And I don't have my quality of life anymore.
You got to answer the first part though, too, bud. And that was
I thinking about it? No, I wasn't thinking about it in my 20s, man, to be honest with you. Like like we talked about, I was an athlete my whole life, and I even through grad school we played semi-professional flag football in Dallas, and like I was still very much an athlete all the way through 25. I was still partying, I wasn't probably sleeping like I should have, and I mean I ate pretty good, ups and downs of my eating because I trained a lot and stuff like that. But honestly, I put a lot of miles on my body in my 20s, bud, and honestly, longevity wasn't in my head, but I would tell you in my late 20s, like 28 to 32, that story started to change for me a little bit.
Yeah, that right on par with me too. It wasn't until I got into naturopathic medicine school that, I played college basketball, and I was a very good athlete leading into that, but it was all just, what can I do right now? How can I jump higher now? Or like, how can I run faster? It was really like performance focused and just about how am I going to do this season as opposed to like what does the next 20 years or plus look like. So
Well,
same thing.
Well, and we were stress, right? I mean,
Totally.
I think that's a good thing to mention. It wasn't about recovery back then.
Not at
It
all.
was like, how much more can I do to grow
Exactly.
and get better? Because you don't really know. And I'm sure that's a concept you're having to teach your clients, right, guys? Is the recovery piece. Because I think a lot of these guys think it's the more they do, the better off they're going to get, and that's not the reality. The magic's in the recovery piece, and we weren't aware of that at that age.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the awareness piece, because that's ultimately probably the number one driving factor of how you know that you're on the right path, and how you know what feels good and what doesn't. And to kind of explain that a little bit more, when I first started meditating, one of the first times I ever meditated was like right out of high school, and I trying to understand what it is. Like, you just sit there and you focus on nothingness, and it's like, yeah, that's your awareness, and just focusing on no thoughts, just being present, being aware. And I think one of the most important things with health is the awareness that comes with feeling healthy. It wasn't until I cultivated an awareness around what it feels like to be optimized and be healthy that I really understood the importance of it. For example, you listening to your body, listening to what your gut has to say after you feed it, a Five Guys burger and fries meal, versus when you feed it something that's actually productive to your health and to your actual gut health, whatever it needs, whether it's you're more prone to inflammation, or you just can't digest certain foods. Tailoring that and then eating those foods makes you feel significantly better in your mental clarity, how you perform day to day, how you sleep. So when I started training for Ironman and all these other things, it was really, really apparent. Like, my awareness really took over how I felt on days when I was underfueled, days when I was fueled properly, days when I had really poor sleep, especially with work. Like, sleep right now is number one. And I'm you look through like my sleep scores over the last year, and it's like 90s average. And if I don't get a good night of sleep with everything kind of in range, then I know that I'm going to be functioning at a lower level. So I'm going to be putting out mediocre results, and it's just not it's not productive. So I try to avoid that at all costs. Make sure sleep's number one. But yeah, the awareness is number one for our clients. And yeah, once you show them what's truly possible with the right awareness, that's where the magic really happens. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, anything to add there, Ioan?
Yeah, I think awareness in recovery is hyper important, and it's just so damn easy to really convey consequence to people. I think it's the healthiest people leave every stone unturned. I mean, leave no stones unturned. Whereas right now, with the cycle that we've created with a constant replenishment for dopamine, we can be caught in these little loops. And until something kind of shakes that paradigm for us, we can stay within that loop for our whole lives without knowing. So slowly introducing and chipping away at like dogmatic principles, bias, and just moving forward with, hey, spending an hour in the steam room and sauna cycle versus working an extra 3 hours at the end of your day is going to give you a much different result in the span of a month versus in the span of 24 hours. So just installing those paradigms as much as we can.
Yeah, I love it. In the realm of mental health and relationships, and I love that there's a theme of self-care, and you brought up meditation, Martin. How do you guys communicate this to men in this generation? Do you feel like that they're receptive? Does it make sense? Like, are you getting them? One of the things I talk to our male patients about, like, I want you to become aware, to your point, of like what your body's telling you. Be aware of your feelings, but you don't have to live there. But you do want to cultivate that self-awareness. But how do you guys bring in this realm of mental health and emotional intelligence and relationships into these young men? Because one last thing I'd say on the relationships, like, I had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like in my 20s, and I was just chasing one to the next, looking for some meaning, and didn't realize what I was doing or not doing. And there, it was probably for me at some point in my late 20s where I was like, I was starting to recognize that what I was doing wasn't working in that level. Maybe I came to it late or early. I mean, it's all relative, but I'd love to hear you guys' interpretation there.
I will say it's really difficult. It's probably the number one most difficult part of the entire service. And taking it back to the point you mentioned, you're asking about recovery. How do we get these guys to like slow down? All they want to do is go, train, train, train. They just want to get the result. It's the same thing there. It's kind of trying to cultivate that awareness through things like meditation and just talking about these things. But obviously, it's one thing to talk about it and it's another thing to actually do it. So we find that with, when it comes to awareness and just overall emotional intelligence with the guys, especially speaking your feelings in this day and age when men aren't supposed to speak their feelings, it's really difficult to get these guys to open up. But I think the fact that we do have the community really helps them understand that they're not alone. And so, in Vancouver, we had, we do this every now and then, but we have like group events, retreats. Either we get together, do a hike, cold plunge, go shoot guns, just go do stuff all together. That's really, really helpful for a lot of the guys, just like to get together. What's also really, really fun is just to create some sort of a competitive nature. So we have Optimability leaderboards. And so we track everyone's health scores on their Garmin's. We see who's sleeping the best, who has the best heart rate metrics, who has the best stress metrics. And we also do performance stuff like who's the fastest runner, most strong, most capable endurance person as well. So it's really fun to create that competitive nature within all the guys. But at the end of the day, like Dave was talking about, it's in this point of our lives when awareness is still kind of a new thing. So having some of the guys come on and not be too familiar with it, it does pose a problem when we do bring it up and try to educate them about it. But I think it's just one of those things where as long as you are aware of the awareness at this point in your life, you have the rest of your life to cultivate it and grow it and really fulfill the person that you're trying to become. So it's a learning process, and it's just going to be one of those things that goes on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, well said. Ioan.
Yeah, I'd say, everyone has really different values. So as long as Martin and I are able to identify what those values are and, speak in their language, what that means to them with what they respect and what they naturally adhere to, it comes in with time. And it's something that they learn to cultivate and weigh into an importance just as much as actually showing up and eating the food or going to the gym. So we're getting there. I think we're getting there. We're by no means like psychologists or people that are amazing at, opening up these things, but there is a sense of trust that is built there. And I know that Martin is really, really good at cultivating that in our clients. And we're both really thankful that we can have such amazing relationships with them. So.
Well, you guys are providing a really incredible environment and opportunity for men to do that, because we're it's not mirrored to us at all, right? It's just not. But men can be, obviously we can be the lone wolf kind of personality where we just dig in and we just do our thing and we just do it alone. So the fact that you guys are creating community and competition, because men also thrive in that kind of experience as well, and challenging ourselves and recognizing our masculinity through these, like, say, group events and things like that, I think it's really powerful. So it creates an opportunity for diving into some of the stuff that we may need to discuss within that sort of safe environment with other men. But it's profoundly, like, in my journey too of self-awareness and meditation and yoga and all the things that I got myself into, it's been one of the most rewarding parts of it, because that self-reflection and that awareness of how you relate to others and how deeply you can actually create connections with people that you didn't realize was available to you. You don't really know how important it is. Kind of like you don't really know how important doing this work now is until you start to do it. You start to become self-aware. So And so, David, I'd love to hear what you have to say on this too, because I know this is a huge part of the things that you investigate, and often when you're doing your assessments on people, it's like when you say, "Hey, I noticed that this emotion is coming up for you. Tell me what's going on." It's kind of, it opens up a can of an opportunity for people to go to actually share. So,
Well, what I've found with people and their health is you're really trying to create a state change, right? So a lot of people get stuck in a state, whether they're dysregulated and, like you're saying, they have emotional barriers that they're stuck in. They're stuck in these negative loops, and a lot of people can't find that motivation to make changes in their life or do these things that they need to do, right? And make better decisions every day, and you won't really see the needle move until, like you guys are saying, you make these people aware of it, or like you're saying, you make the body aware of it. And that's whether it's a test, like you guys are running different labs on people, you do different types of measurements, and you're bringing things aware to them, or it's stuff like me or Nick do, or anybody else, right? But the reality is until those people find that awareness in some fashion or form, you can't get a shift in that person's behavior. And this is different for everybody. I mean, we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, some person could be struggling with their health because it's more emotional than anything, and there's some trauma that hasn't been dealt with, and that needs to be addressed for you to see the needle move. Other people, it's just they're being lazy. They need to exercise more, right? They're just not making time to exercise and do the things they need to do. And other people, maybe they're just making their diet more for convenience, and there's nothing really, they're not really thinking too much about what they're going to put in their body. It's just more reactive, right? So the point in case is it's very different for everybody, but the awareness piece is the most important piece to start getting things to shift. Like you guys said, it's a puzzle, and each client that you work with is a puzzle piece, and you're trying to get to those bigger puzzle pieces, or the cogs that are going to make the most movement quicker, right? Because I mean, we've talked about this. You can spend months and months changing somebody's diet, getting them to exercise, do all these things. That doesn't mean they're any healthier, man. Like, and they could be training and doing all these things. Doesn't mean they're any healthier from a holistic picture. Yeah, you're seeing markers change because they're doing physical things or they're eating better. But the reality is, if you don't get upstream and find some of these bigger things that are causing health issues, you will not see the end result that you're looking for with these individuals. So again, back to the awareness is huge, whether we're finding that through measuring things, or you're making that awareness aware to the person that you're working with, that they need to start, like Nick is saying, finding more reflection, or these moments, like you said, go spend an hour in the steam sauna instead of working 3 more hours. Or what is that? It's not about the steam sauna necessarily. It's they had an hour by themselves to sit there and reflect and be in their own head in the steam sauna. And that actually is probably more medicinal than the steam sauna itself. So it's these things, man. I mean, we could go round and round, right, about this stuff, but it's huge. I love the conversation of awareness, because like you guys are saying, it can be cultivated, but it's like planting seeds, and then you're watering those seeds, and you want them to grow over time. So very, very important.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, even just about the steam room, because reflecting back, even for myself, at some point along my journey, I think it sounds like to me you guys are already there, but at some point I really realized how much I enjoyed time to myself. And I think especially like growing up, it was always like, hey, what are the guys doing? What are my buddies doing? How can I be more social? Like, how can I put myself in environments and create new experiences, or I can meet new people? But there was something that shifted in my own journey where I really cherish that time alone. I really cherish that time for reflection, for meditation, for self-care. And it sounds like you guys are planting that opportunity, and maybe even like having some of your people tune into a podcast like this, so that they're dialing in all the physical stuff, they're getting the biochemistry's coming together. It's like, wait, there's something missing, and it's this, and so I think it's really, really important that that we all make time for ourselves, and we all get to know ourselves, and get to know ourselves in our own time, and not get to know ourselves through what other people think about us, or how we're concerned about the perception of others. It's more like, can you know you? And that's a really beautiful opportunity that obviously can come through meditation, or you said, the steam room on your own or whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
amazing conversation, guys. Anything you like to share with the listeners, just around, like, I mean, it could be like, where can people find you? Who are the people that you kind of work with? Or is there any sort of like thoughts or reflections that you guys want to share before we sign out?
Yeah, just one last thought on what you mentioned, being alone. So I really like that you brought that up, because I'm actually in a season of solitude right now myself. I'm training for a 100-mile race this September, and so I figured the best way to train and prepare myself is to go and isolate myself with my girlfriend, so it's not complete isolation, but to go live in the forest out in Sunshine Coast for 6 months. So I'm only about 2.5 months into this journey, but just being alone for, those like long runs, 4, 5, 6 hour runs, being out here where there's nothing else to do, you just focus on what's important, shifting the identity, really moving the needle forward when it comes to growth. I think it's so vital for men of all ages, and I think I'm really, really grateful to have the experience right now at this age. So one of the biggest my biggest takeaways from this year of my life is having this season of solitude is one of the most conducive things that you can do for your growth. And I think just being alone, no matter if it's you training for 100 miles or you're training for something, or you just want to be, live somewhere by yourself, is a very important part of life that I think everybody should go through. So I'm glad you brought that up before we close off the podcast.
Amazing. Well, tell you what, if you're going to run the grouse grind for 12 hours, that's some serious isolation, because there's no one that's going to join you doing that. Just for those of you that aren't local, grouse grind, like there's lists of like the top times of how quickly you can hike your butt up this mountain, and there's sort of like semi manicured stepping stone process to get to the top. But it's kind of like one of the things that people like to challenge themselves on here in Vancouver. So I was just sort of reminiscing on you sharing that 12-hour event. That's your name must be up there somewhere.
I mean, no, it's just a race every year, so I'll do it again this year if you'd like to join.
Yeah, I might maybe just for like a quarter of that time.
Yeah.
I'll meet you on one of the laps going up and down. Ioan, anything else to add? And just, I guess, one last thing, Martin, on I'm so happy you're doing that for yourself. Good for you, man. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd it's probably one of the first times where I've heard somebody that I just met for the first time, which is David, use a word like hold-ons. And I actually found that word when I spent, I would say, 2-3 years of my life, figuring out the business, figuring out what I'm going to put my life journey towards. And I listened to self-actualization podcasts every single day that I would get on the bike, and I'd have like 200, 300, 400 kilometer weeks. Even when I went on vacations, Martin knows this, when I went to Soyuz, I spent like 500 kilometers in the week on the bike. And throughout all the time for Ironman training, bodybuilding training, you name it, all of that pain, you kind of forget. And investing in that solitude has brought, I think, me to where I am today. I wouldn't be here without it. So cultivating that awareness, and something that I did that was kind of crazy. Martin and I were living together in downtown, and we came to the realization, like, this is not it. We need to like feel grass. We need a high quality produce. We need to remove all this, city radiation. So he moved to Seashell, and then I got in an RV and I toured the entire British Columbia. No running water, no shower. Just figuring out as I went. I didn't, this kind of a flex, but I didn't pay for an RV spot either. It was like kind of like a stealth camper. So just on the side of the street where I found it, and just being alone for a month there, that was fully alone. In provincial parks and all those things, being in solitude, I just noticed how easy it is for me to distract myself. If I'm feeling a certain way, I can just, call up a buddy, or, go down, walk to a grocery store or a coffee shop, whatever. But when you're alone with your emotions, it's difficult. So to put yourself in that spot is one of the most empowering things that you can do. Because yesterday when I was swimming laps, I was like on 400 meters. I had to swim, I think 800 or 1,000. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And at that moment in time, I could have chosen to get up and leave, or I could have just seen it all through. And by seeing it all through, I forgot that I saw it all through, but I did it anyways, because that's what needs to be done. And all those little decisions incrementally add to, a better and better life as we age. So yeah, it's amazing to be aware. So I think we're very fortunate to have cultivated that earlier.
It's amazing. I do hope that your people get a chance to listen to your own stories here too, because it's very common, I think, for the coach or the doctor to sit in this position of knowing, but then to also hear the story of how you live your life, how you choose to see things, and making time for yourself, and that sense of empowerment that comes from isolation. So that's beautiful words, guys. It's really awesome. David?
Very wise souls with a very bright future. Very excited for you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So tell us where to go, or tell listeners where to go to find out more about what you guys are doing, Instagram, whatever. And we'll put it into the show notes, of course, so people don't have to just jot it down while they listen. But yeah, just share where you guys are at.
I would say the best place is probably Instagram. I'm on Instagram, real Martin Nikolov, and then Instagram Optimability as well. Optimability. So website, same thing. If you want to chat with us, you could just go ahead and book a call there. I'm more than happy to see if you'd be a good fit. But that's pretty much it. We're keeping it lean, keeping it simple. It's very select people that we work with, and we don't need to complicate it.
Love it. You guys are beasts. I've seen your Instagrams, so great work, guys. Ioan, any last tips from you, or any other resources that you want to add, or did he hit them all?
I think Martin hit them all. My personal Instagram is IOANPV. Last tips: keep at it. Don't sacrifice truth. Alignment is everything, and trust the process, and it'll come together before you know it. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. Love it, guys. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Check out their amazing pages, what they're sharing with the world, and we'll see you guys all on the next podcast. David, love you, man.
Love you, brother.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.